You know, I've been playing video games since I was about 2 or 3 years old. The first video game I ever played was actually Grand Theft Auto 3, which I know is going to be weird for a lot of people to hear, because most kids aren't really allowed to play games like that growing up, but that was actually one of the first video games that my dad ever introduced me to. And I've been blessed enough to play a lot of the best video games of all time throughout my, I guess, history playing video games, as many of us have, right? You know, we've played some crazy good games over the years. There have been some absolute just industry-changing, genre-defining games that have come out, even in recent years. You know what I'm saying? This isn't, I guess, an argument that should be made against the entirety of the gaming industry, but I think that this is something that me, as someone who plays video games often, kind of just feels, especially in recent years. Maybe the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, it seems like this has been kind of this trend that I've noticed. And this isn't to say that, like, this was never happening before, that, you know, back in 2003, somebody would get away with something like this. But I mean, I think that when you look at the amount of times that things like this are happening, it's definitely a lot more noticeable now than it was then. I don't know if it's because of the inventions of things like social media, you know, because obviously social media is completely different than it was in, you know, the early 2000s. I'm not sure if it's because I've grown up and I've kind of realized a lot of what I'm playing, and I have no idea, but I feel like, you know, video games not have gotten worse, but almost that, like, the enjoyability and that, I guess, that feeling that was initially there is kind of waning, okay? In the last 2 or 3 years, right, the only games that I've really been playing, and I mean really putting time into, are like Grand Theft Auto 5, Rocket League, Minecraft, and occasionally Call of Duty. It seems like a lot of the major games that I get excited for outside of that, and honestly, even with a franchise like Call of Duty, have all just been massive disappointments, right? One of the big franchises that I first got into with video games, Grand Theft Auto, obviously, Madden, that helped me really get, I guess, more casually into video games, The Legend of Zelda. Now, two of those franchises are still consistently putting out classic titles pretty much every time that they release a game, it seems like. You know, Grand Theft Auto, they don't really miss. In general, Rockstar doesn't even really miss. And The Legend of Zelda, you know, it misses very, very, very occasionally, and when it does miss, the miss that it has compared to maybe, like, you know, a No Man's Sky at launch miss is just not comparable. But man, Madden, that franchise that really helped me kind of casually slip into video games more, is just completely fucking terrible now. Now, if you don't understand the story of what happened to Madden, okay, you know, in the 2000s, it was actually like a decent sports franchise, and I know that sports games get a lot of criticism because, you know, it's just the same game every year, and that wasn't really the case when I grew up playing it, because they actually added new features and there was content there to play with, and it was actually fun. But Madden at this point is a glorified trading card game. The only mode that they work on is literally just Ultimate Team to sell you microtransactions. The other modes that people would like to play that actually involve, you know, some strategy to them as well, you know, like franchise or owner modes, things like that, they get no love, they get no respect. It's literally just cut in and out of each game every single year and put into the next title. And it's kind of sad to see how franchises like this have completely fallen apart. And the reason, especially for Madden, and a lot of sports franchise actually, is because of what they call exclusivity licenses. So essentially these real-life leagues will sign with, like, EA Sports, a 5-year exclusivity deal to make the only official NFL, NHL, FIFA games on the market, okay? And every other game can't use the likenesses of the teams and players and things like that, meaning that they're not even going to sell copies of their game, meaning that there's really no competition in these fields of play, and, you know, they have no incentive to actually make a good game. Because they know that every single year people are going to pay $60 to literally restart the card game that they spent $700 on the year before. And it's just not even just, you know, sports franchises. You know, it comes down to a lot of these big titles too, okay? Because there's been a lot of games that I've looked forward to over the last few years that are just completely fucking horrible when they come out. It seems like there's almost this industry trend, right? Because of things like E3 and releasing a YouTube trailer and trying to get all the hype generated around it and things like that. It seems like there's almost this trend where game developers will take a game that's maybe 65% complete, right? They'll push that through and go gold with it. The rest of that content will either come down the road in a roadmap of free updates, or it'll be paid DLC content. And what they'll do is they'll take that shell of a game that, you know, they've polished the graphics on and everything. They'll make these hyper-realistic, amazing-looking cinematic quality trailers They'll promise all these awesome features in the game and make it just look like it's going to be the next big thing in the industry, right? Everyone gets hyped because of it. They're like, holy shit, this game looks amazing. It's going to have all these features, a great story. Oh my god, I can't wait. And guess what happens the day that it comes out? 70% of the features that were promised are now put into this free update roadmap over the next 2 years. The content that's there is stale because it's not enjoyable because the features that would make it enjoyable are not in the game. There's already day one paid content for people, so on top of spending $60+ on a video game, they're now trying to sell you a season pass at $50 to actually buy the content that was supposed to come in the game. Microtransactions and DLC had a huge part to do with this. A lot of you I don't think are going to remember this because I do know that there's a lot of younger people who watch my channel. Back in the day, right? Back in, 2005, if you wanted to drop, DLC, you didn't have fucking Xbox Live or Steam to push that out for people to buy. Or if you did, it was pretty much bare bones compared to what it is now, and it had a fraction of the user base. What would happen, like I play a lot of Civilization, it's one of my favorite franchises of all time, right? They would release expansions for the game, but you would have to go to the store and buy a whole new physical disc of content to go home and install on your computer. So for some games, you'd have to have like 5 different discs, install all the content, and that would be the game, right? Now, of course, compared to today's standards, that's very, inconvenient, and it's not a good use of physical materials like CDs and whatnot. But back in the day, it seems like it was a completely different standard of how you could release content in the gaming industry, because consumers would just not buy fucking garbage. It was like, I think back in the 80s or whatever, they made that shitty E.T. game that went down as one of the worst video games of all time, and it literally sold so poorly that they had to fill up an entire fucking landfill full of cartridges of it because nobody would buy it. And it's now widely credited as being one of the catalysts of the gaming industry crash. And then now today, right, anyone can slap a fucking $60 AAA title out that's completely unfinished, and because of all of these trailers that just glorify how the game looks, all these features that aren't there, all these broken promises, right? You're gonna still sell a stupid amount of copies, okay? Now, one of my favorite franchises of all time, Call of Duty, has now also been doing this. As a matter of fact, you're watching new Call of Duty gameplay in the background. This is Black Ops Cold War, okay? This is the Call of Duty game that is coming out pretty much in about a month. Don't get me wrong, there's some things I like about this game, but it's not hitting for me so far. It's not... I don't know. This is the problem that I've had with Call of Duty for the last few years, right? When they kind of went futuristic, right? During like Advanced Warfare through Infinite Warfare, the Call of Duty community was really fucking mad because we didn't want futuristic games with all this exo boosting and everything. At least for the most part, there's a lot of people who still like and defend it. Personally, I think Advanced Warfare was a fine game. Black Ops 3, I think, arguably could be one of the top 5 Call of Duty games of all time if the microtransaction system wasn't really in place and it actually had a solid campaign, but people didn't like that shit. So what they did is they demanded that the franchise go back to the roots. People wanted Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, MW3, BO2 style gameplay, right? They wanted an arcadey kind of shooter with, iconic maps, awesome campaigns, great third modes like zombies and survival mode and spec ops, things like that. We got World War II by Sledgehammer Games, which when it released was fucking so mediocre that it was unbearable to play if you were an old school Call of Duty fan. Granted, that game made an incredible comeback, and May the next year it was actually a solid Call of Duty game, but it literally took them overhauling the Sledgehammer studio to actually make that happen. Then we got Black Ops 4, which was the least Black Ops game of all time, literally didn't have a campaign, and in all reality, probably only had the Black Ops name attached to it to sell copies. You either love this game or you hate it, I feel like. I generally think kind of negatively of my experience playing this one, although there was definitely some good elements to it. And then we got Modern Warfare, which, everyone thought was going to be the fucking savior of the franchise, right? Everyone thought that this was going to be the game because, we got Captain Price, Bravo 6 going dark, pulling the goggles down. Had one of the franchise's best campaigns. I mean, without a doubt, that was a fucking incredible story. Spec Ops and Survival sucked, okay? That was very disappointing, very underwhelming, and, literally 2 machines of the 3 major consoles literally could not play Survival or that shit until pretty much like 3 weeks ago because of PlayStation exclusivity. The multiplayer maps are complete dog shit. There's some decent weapons. The multiplayer it's nothing like Modern Warfare. I don't know. And Black Ops Cold War, I feel like, is just the Modern Warfare equivalent to the Black Ops franchise, right? They're just claiming it to be like a revitalization of the franchise, right? But all it is it has the name attached, it has some iconic characters who don't even have the original voice actors. And then on top of that, the multiplayer is nothing like the franchise that it's supposedly going back to the roots of. And it just fucking baffles me because the Call of Duty franchise, don't get me wrong, the fans, you know, a lot of them don't know what they want. Dead serious, all I want is like a Black Ops 2-esque shooter. I still play Black Ops 2 to this day. I have BO2 Plutonium, I still play. And it's sad that in order to actually get an enjoyable multiplayer experience for Call of Duty, the extreme that has to be done is modders in the community have to literally fucking rebuild the classic titles from the ground up on their own servers and just pray that Activision doesn't seize into system for people to actually enjoy that because there's no support for previous titles. No Man's Sky is another great example. This was the first game I ever went to a midnight release for. I went and got my copy for the PlayStation 4 at midnight. I had school and all that shit to worry about. I think that was a Friday that came out, so that actually came out during the summer, I think, so maybe I didn't have school the next day. But I mean, you know, that was the first game. I was like, I don't know, 16 when that game came out. I stood in line for this fucking game, got home, and literally all the features that were promised to be in the game are just now being added. Granted, if you play No Man's Sky for the first time today and you don't have that fucking terrible PTSD of that launch in your head, you will undoubtedly think that No Man's Sky is a good game, for the most part, if that's what you're going into it for that space exploration and shit. But it has made a miraculous comeback, but that's the point of this video. I'm so sick and tired of these games having these awesome fucking promises and trailers made, and I get excited for it, right? You know, and I go pre-order it, which I'm done pre-ordering shit. If it's not a game that I know I'm using for gameplay and making my money back on, or I know that I'm sinking 200 plus hours into, there's no chance I'm pre-ordering it. But they get you so excited with all that shit, and then they fail every single time. It's like, how do studios even, you know, morally accept themselves doing this at this point, right? If you're a developer of a video game and you're sinking years of your time into this project, how do you morally feel not bankrupt? Over-promising shit in trailers and in interviews and at E3, just knowing for a fact that when that game is released, you're letting all these people down because it's not going to have that shit in it. I don't know if that microtransaction money or those first day sales are able to just boost that shit out of your head, but dude, it's getting kind of pitiful. And all I really want are some games that I can sit down and play with my friends and have some fucking fun in without having to sweat every single game that I play in casual playlists. Yeah, Call of Duty, I'm looking at you. You know, that's another thing, right? Black Ops Cold War, I think the worst element of it is the skill-based matchmaking, right? You drop 30 kills one game, right? And the next game you're playing against kids who are fucking max level in the beta, okay? Have not seen the sun since 2014. They smell like fucking swamp ass and Cheeto dust because they haven't left their chair since Reddit became a thing. They're fucking snorting their mom's Adderall off their desk, okay, with their lit up rainbow keyboard, which I can't say shit because I have mine right in front of me, but they're fucking slide chowing cracked corners, you know, beaming you like they're the next professional player, and it's ridiculous. I'm not here to say that video games aren't enjoyable anymore. I'm here to just simply say that developers need to fucking learn a lesson. You're over-promoting your games to a point that when they come out, they instantaneously are below expectations for a lot of people. I know I'm not the only person who feels this way, okay? And it's ridiculous that it's gotten to this point that this has to be said, but we're here. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shop Opti down below. Thank you to my channel members. Your support helps my channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus. Well, just looking for a fucking game to play that's not Minecraft. I've been playing that for 8 years now, right? And signing out.